Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Healing for Hot Messes podcast, the place where magic, mindset, and mystery collide. I'm super excited to be joined here today with Lauren Sapala. So, Lauren is an author, teacher, speaker, and creative guide. Her nonfiction books for intuitive creatives include The INFJ Writer, The INFJ Revolution, and Writing on the Intuitive Side of the Brain. Lauren's work empowers intuitive personality types and sensitive creative people to discover their own gifts and unique potential. So, welcome, Lauren. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, hi, Mandy. Thank you so much for having me.
So I am so interested in the kind of work that you do. I think that I took one of those tests a while ago and kind of signaled as being an INFJ. And so when I saw the kind of work that you did, I was so curious about that because there is very different kind of sets of issues and a different kind of worldview that comes with being a, I guess sensitive or empath or those types. So I was just wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about your work.
Well, I was talking to someone today and they said, now who's in your audience again? Is it MBTI people? Is it it's INFJs, INFPs? And I said, yeah, it is, but it's also highly creative, highly sensitive, empaths, right brain dominant, neurodivergent, highly intuitive. I was like, there's this string of labels. And I wish I just had one word that kind of covered the whole thing. Gifted, creatively gifted, artists, writers, it is a certain kind of person. And sometimes they hit all of the traits and sometimes they hit most of them, but it does tend to be INFJ and INFP personality types. So introverted, intuitive, and emotionally centered people who I will also add in also tend to be neurodivergent, creatively gifted, empathic. Lately, I've really been pursuing the division between thick and thin boundary people. I think INFJs and INFPs are thin boundary people. We have softer psychological boundaries and we have a more porous energy field, it seems. So we pick up on stuff. We have psychic abilities. We have great intuition. We can read the emotional temperature of a room very easily for us. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's a whole lot of different terms, but if you fall into that category, I think you really feel the resonance of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I bet that anybody listening to this, I bet a high degree of them will resonate with it as well. And I think that these are kind of the personality type that I think we could use more louder voices from, particularly at this, unique moment in time right now. People who are deeply feeling and people who do lead with their heart and their intuition and creativity, right?
Well, it's interesting because so many of our type of people, we have the same kinds of issues, and a big one is fear of being seen.
Yeah.
So we tend to not step forward. We have a lot of difficulty sometimes using our voice,
Hmm.
speaking our truth, speaking up. We're the kids in school who felt weird, who maybe were in the back of the classroom on the fringes and didn't want to raise our hand and really got pushed a lot to be more assertive, participate more. And we didn't want to. We didn't feel that there was a place for us with our unique way that we are.
Hmm. Yeah, so just to backtrack a little bit, just in case anybody here is not familiar with those personality types, could you tell us a little bit about INFJs and INFPs?
Oh yeah. So there's 16 different personality types, and anyone who's listening to this, if you're like, wow, I really love that, I want more, you can Google the Myers-Briggs Personality Typing System or MBTI. The four letters INFJ is introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging. It doesn't mean that they're judgmental. I want to throw it because people always say, wait a minute, I'm not judgmental. It doesn't mean that they're judgmental. When you have a J, it means you make decisions based on either emotion or thinking.
Mhm.
INFP is introverted, intuitive, feeling, perceiving. People who are perceivers make decisions based on sensing or perceiving or intuition, sensing or intuition. So it's all about how you make decisions. And it's basically how you navigate life, how you make decisions, and how you learn and process information. There is a wide spectrum of people who are INFJs and INFPs. I've met people who are in the military who are INFJs. I've met accountants who are INFPs. I've met police officers, paramedics, people across all walks of life that you would say, I can't believe that person's an introvert, or I can't believe that person's highly sensitive, or I can't believe that person is a feeler. But they are. And they can do quite well in a variety of different avenues in life. It really depends on what works for them.
Wow. Yeah. No, it's so true that there's so many different manifestations of that personality type. And I think that people tend to kind of pigeonhole it into being, that it's kind of like a wallflower type or somebody who's like very nourished by their inner world, whereas it really can be like expressed in such a wide variety of ways. So I love that you said that. So I'm curious, Lauren, what brought you to working with those sorts of people in the specific way that you do, like helping with things like creativity and like connecting to self-expression and authenticity, that sort of thing?
Mm. Well, it was my own story,
Yeah.
unsurprisingly. I was always a total weirdo. I just never really fit in. I tried to pass and I couldn't pass as normal. And I really always loved writing. I really gravitated towards writing, but I had so many problems writing. I tried to take creative writing classes. I did horribly. I had a creative writing professor sit me down and say, You're just not very good at this. I think you should try doing something else. I think you should put your energy towards something that will bear fruit for you because this probably won't because you're a bad writer. And I kept trying to write after that, and I just couldn't make it happen. I was hopelessly blocked and stuck. And then I was a pretty bad alcoholic for 7 straight years. And I tried to write during that time as well. I knew the two things were linked. I knew that my alcohol abuse and me not being able to write were linked in some way,
Yeah.
but I couldn't quite put the pieces together. And then finally, I quit drinking and I started a silent writing program. I joined this program in San Francisco. We met once a week and we wrote silently together. And suddenly I was writing. And I knew this was the key for me. All of the classes and the tips and the tricks and the outline, none of that worked, but this worked. Then I started my own writing group. And then I became a writing coach. And slowly, I realized I was attracting the same people that sort of were a mirror for me. They were reflecting my problems. Same issues. They couldn't outline, they couldn't plan, they couldn't do this thinking thing that you had to do. They
Mhm.
went totally on intuition, just fragments dropped in. And they reported the same experiences. I feel like my characters are real. I
Mhm.
can't control them. They're talking to me. I'm having dreams about them. I've had precognitive dreams about other things. So I started putting all these pieces together and then I got into personality theory and I realized they were all INFJs. They were all INFPs. And we can't use left brain methods. The
Mhm.
left brain world doesn't work for us. We do not work in a straight line. Our brains don't work like the left brain works. We don't see things in terms of cause and effect and problem solving.
Yeah.
It's a web. It's a web of creation, and sometimes we can plug into it. And that's how we work. And so that's how I developed my writing method, the intuitive writing method. That's kind of a lot in a little
Yeah.
nutshell.
But that's so amazing because it sounds like, you've created like a safe space and system for like a bunch of little channels, right? Because that's the thing is that sometimes, as a writer and as somebody who's creative, whether you're an artist, whether you're a musician, whatever, I think something that is very consistent across experiences is that feeling of that the art is like forcing you to be the channel for it versus you
Mhm.
sitting down and intentionally going like, this is how we get from A to B in a linear fashion. It really is something that, like you're saying, is a web. It's almost like its own brain of neurons, this like all these things firing away at once. I love that.
Mm-hmm. And the intuitive people can feel it.
Yeah.
That's how we create art. We can feel it. And the thing I also found, all of these people were healers. Their
Mm,
art always had something to do with healing, whether they were
yeah.
writing or painting or dancing. they were doing something with healing. These are people who can sit with another person and find the wound
Yeah.
and also find the way that they need to heal.
That's amazing. Yeah, because when you're sensitive, often um, growing up with that level of like, I don't know if it's the right word, but alienation from other people and sometimes having that very rich emotional world, it can cause you to be able to see it feels like sometimes straight into the heart of a situation or of a person or something. And it really does create this strange like second sight or like a kind of um intuitive thing that just happens within you where it's like you can kind of see past the mundane everything straight into the heart of things, which is also its own kind of flavor of overwhelming, but
Oh yeah,
finding a
I think
channel for it.
that's the hard thing about being a sensitive weirdo is you really can understand other people at a very deep level quickly, and
Yeah.
they don't understand you.
Yes.
So it
Yeah.
feels so
And
one-sided.
yeah, and also multiple perspectives. Like, and I think that that's something that is a bit of a struggle in this day and age for sure, where it's like you can kind of see a little bit of how multiple perspectives can happen, even if they're conflicting, and if even if you don't necessarily identify or you don't share the same beliefs, it's that ability to kind of put yourself in someone else's shoes and be like, oh wow, is this where they're coming from? And it can feel more curse than blessing sometimes, but yeah,
Mhm.
it's interesting, like a superpower kind of.
Oh yeah, and I mean, as emotional as we are too, we tend to be detached from other people's points of view because we can
Mhm.
flow into it.
Yeah.
We can kind of flow in, be inside them, take a peek around, and then flow back into us. Sometimes
Yeah.
that's cool, and sometimes it's a burden.
That's amazing. So you were saying you had this silent writing program. Tell me a bit more about that because that is actually so interesting. I love that.
I still do it. So I did it in person in San Francisco and Seattle for years. We met at a
Mhm.
cafe once a week, and I did, 2 hours at once. And I had based that off the program I was in, the very first one I joined in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then after the pandemic happened, everything went online, and I started doing online silent writing. I still do every month. So we meet Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I open up with a meditation. It's like 5 minutes, and then we just write together.
Amazing.
And people who don't have writing problems or
Mhm.
who are not writers or who have not tried it, they're like, I don't really get it. Why would you sit with people on Zoom and write for 1 hour silently? And I always say you have to try it. And if it's for you, it will really work. For me, I've been doing it for 20 years now. It's the only way I write. And I've written multiple books.
Yeah.
I can't really write on my own. On my own, the anxiety sets in.
Mhm.
I want to stop and start the procrastination, the perfectionism.
Yeah.
When I do the silent writing sessions, I look up, I see all of these faces, everyone's writing. Some people leave their cameras off. It's
Yeah.
introvert friendly, but
Yeah.
it's that group energy and it
Yeah.
works. And people say to me, I haven't written in years and I'm writing again. I'm writing my novel, I'm reconnecting with my characters, I'm
Yeah.
writing my book. This is amazing. And it's like we are a big group soul together,
Mhm.
working all together.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that because it's funny. If somebody wouldn't understand how that works, I would automatically assume that they must be neurotypical because of the whole idea of body doubling, right? And so having people there. But then I wonder as well, as somebody that does, I lead live sessions, we do therapeutic art and things like that. Do you find that there's also that element of like the energy of space and like the collective energy of having just like I feel like every group of people, whether it's on Zoom or in person or whatever, it does seem to have its own spirit and its own soul. So do you think that that's something that's at play as well?
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I do workshops too, like you do, where I lead people through therapeutic visualizations.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll say, put your hands out, like let's make a circle and take the hand of the people next to you. And every time I do it, I swear, I'm like, I feel
Yeah.
hands. I literally feel hands. And that is not me making, I'm not making it up.
Yeah.
Like I feel skin,
Yeah.
And people have reported to me, yeah, I felt it too.
Yeah.
Or if somebody shares, and they cry, it's like all of us feel that electricity, that
Yeah.
release.
Yeah.
it's very real. And I think there is something to that. It's energy and
Yeah.
it's something that we can all participate in or not. And it's
Yeah.
okay if people don't want to, but it's incredibly powerful if you do.
Yeah, that's amazing. It really is something that is very special because I think that there's like too much emphasis on logic or like explaining things or like words, and it's like so much of life is such a felt experience, right? So much of connection is a felt experience, someone that you might really want to like, but something in your body is like absolutely not, or things like that. And I think that really leaning into that and letting that lead um is just such a powerful thing.
Oh, definitely. And I do my workshops. I always start and I say, I know this might sound odd to say, but everybody here loves you.
Yeah.
Everybody here has shown up with an open heart and they love you and they care about you as a human. And I can feel this upswelling of, oh my goodness. And then people later will say, I can't believe so many things shifted for me in that workshop. I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
And I say, because you were held in love.
Yeah.
And that is just something you don't find in our culture. It's so many people are distrustful or suspicious, which I understand.
Yep.
We do live in a certain time and place in our modern day,
Yeah.
but it's hard to find an experience where you feel like you can just show up as you are and you're unconditionally loved by the people there. That's really powerful.
Yes, yeah, it is. And I think it's something that it is funny we live in this strange time where like I'm a Xennial, so I remember like pre-internet time, and it's crazy because now it's like that whole idea of being more connected than ever but then feeling even lonelier. It actually boggles my, this is a side note, but it boggles my fucking mind that I don't see kids playing outside or
Mhm.
anything. It's so crazy because I feel like the way we connect as human beings is so different. The way we create also is very different. Like I know for me personally, I love pen and paper. Like when I went through university and everything, like I was a note taker by hand. And it's like there's just different parts of your brain that get activated and engaged. And it's such an interesting time, I think, to be both a sensitive person and a creative person, right? Which, I mean, I think we're all
Mhm.
creative, but like finding what works for you and what you bring to the table with that, right?
Well, and I say, in silent writing or any writing practice, if you're having blocks, try handwriting. I
Yes.
handwrite all of my novels. And people say,
Yeah.
well, doesn't that take more time? Isn't that tedious? You have to type it up. And I say, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But that connection is so much more direct for me. And when I'm handwriting, things come through that do not come through when I'm typing.
Yes. Yeah, there is something I think there is something to the somatic element of actually getting out of your head and into your hands, which like I mean, a keyboard just doesn't do it. Although there is a part of me that's like, if I had one of those fancy old-timey typewriters, maybe I could make it work.
I have a couple writers who use those. I think that that's sort of showing up in a theatrical way,
Yes.
which I think can also help. Sometimes
Yes.
if you show up to different situations in your life in a theatrical way.
Yes.
And you mentioned Mitch Horowitz in one of your newsletters, and I was so happy about that. And he actually recommends that. He said, grab a copy of Think and Grow Rich or
Yeah.
some motivational book. And he said, pretend like you're in the 1940s.
Yeah.
Pretend like you're some man or woman in the 30s or 40s and you're desperately holding on to this self-help book. And I was like, I love that. I love that
Yeah.
idea of showing up, life is theater. That can make it so much more powerful.
I think this, yeah, and I completely agree. I think our tendency to like, I mean, I don't know about you, but I grew up hearing like, stop being so dramatic and blah blah blah, and like, oh my gosh, you're always like performing, and then that got really stuffed into my shadow space, and so it's so funny that as an adult, part of my healing has been really reclaiming my inner attention whore, and like because
Mhm.
life is drama, life is theater, and if we pretend we're not feeling dramatic about shit, it just leaks out in all these other ways that are like considerably less fun and entertaining. It just becomes
Mhm.
like I wonder sometimes how much of the chaos that I created in my own life when I was in my, teens and 20s was really just my inner attention whore coming out in like the worst possible ways because it didn't have an outlet, right? And I think that when we let emotion and creativity and stuff become like a theatrical act, a dramatic act, even if it's just for like you're pissed off, you just take 10 minutes to stomp it out and get it out of your system. If we don't indulge that part of ourselves, it's like, what happens to it, right? It does come out, it never goes away. So, like, do you want to be in control of that, or are you going to let it control you?
Well, that's what I always say when people are suppressing their archetypes. And I
Yeah.
see this in women a lot that like you were suppressing your sage.
Yeah.
Sages like to talk, sages like to perform and teach. And I'm on a stage and everyone look at me because I have something to share.
Yeah.
So that needed to come out. And when I teach about archetypes in my classes, I say, like you might have someone who's like a mastermind archetype. In the
Mhm.
right situation, they're a CEO of a company. In the wrong situation, they're a criminal.
Yeah.
They're going to use that ability. It has to express.
Yes.
They were born with that. All of us are born with different archetypes, and they have to express, and they can express in the positive pole or the negative pole. It depends on how you want to play it. So it's going to be much easier on you if you let it out. If you accept it and you let it out and you let it express in the positive pole.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that if you're like a bit of a spiritual creative weirdo as a child, it's such a beautiful form of reclamation because it isn't the sort of thing that's encouraged in our society. But like if you take a look around at our society, I'm like, why would I do anything the way that is encouraged fucking here? Because this is a madhouse. What is this? So I think allowing yourself to live in a way like that, because I think we tend to, as human beings, because we have this deep evolutionary desire to conform and to fit in the herd and all of that sort of thing. I think that we tend to kind of repress those things that feel very human and natural to us, right? And it's so crazy because I feel like individually, if we really like led with our impulses and kind of went with what we felt called to do and trusted our intuition and our vibes a little bit more in a less structured way, I wonder what kind of world that we would have, right? And how many people might feel more empowered instead of kind of self-monitoring.
Yeah, I see that in the sensitive population, so many of the wounds are self-expression wounds.
Yeah.
Play small, don't be too loud, don't ask for too much, don't
Yeah.
have a lot of needs, don't be needy,
Yeah.
take up space. And then we see that in the body, the hunched shoulders, shallow breathing. I'm not going to use my voice, or I'm not going to share my writing or my art. This like I need to constrict and be small to stay safe.
Right, right. So when it comes to sensitive people, introverted people, people who are intuitive, that are wanting to take some baby steps or like learn how to express themselves in a more authentic or empowered way, what kind of advice would you give those sorts of people looking just to get started? Maybe even people who wouldn't identify as being creative.
I would say the first step is get to know who you are. I
Hmm.
have an astounding number of people who show up to my classes where I'm teaching about this stuff and they say, but I don't even really know what I like or what I don't like. I was always dominated by my mother or my father or the religion of my family or my community. I don't even know my preferences.
Yeah.
How do I find this out? And I say, you can look at the MBTI system, you can look at the Enneagram, you can look at astrology, you can look at human design. Like there's so many different systems, but start looking around and asking yourself, who am I? What are my natural expressions? Am I a performer? Am I more of a scholar? Am I more of a warrior?
Mhm.
What kinds of elements make up me? And it might be very basic. Some people are like, I've had women show up to my classes who are like, I don't even know what my favorite color is. Because my
Mhm.
mom's favorite color was blue, so my favorite color needed to be blue. And
Wow.
I never asked myself, so if you're at that level, maybe go out to a farmer's market or go to a really nice store and say, what am I drawn to? What
Mhm.
colors am I drawn to? What foods am I drawn to? What smells really good to me? What feels really good to me? What don't I like? Start there. Like, where are the boundaries between what I love, what I'm okay with, and what I really don't like? And work from that place. And then you can get a little bit more advanced and a little bit more advanced. Because it's hard for people, before we started talking about claiming that title artist, it's hard for people to just stand up and say, I'm an artist or I'm a writer. You might not be there yet.
Yeah.
But you can say, I like cantaloupe.
Yeah.
I know that. I know that about myself. And you can just sort of build a foundation from something very small like that.
Oh man, that's such a good point. I find that in my work as well, that a lot of people are really starting at the ground up, especially after yeah, childhood trauma, or like after having putting themselves aside for quite a long time if they've had children, is something that I see a lot. Whereas I think there's this idea that you have to like find yourself, like you're like loose change in the couch,
Mhm.
and it's like, but you might not be that same person that you were the last time you felt really connected with yourself, right? So who are you right now in this moment? Because it might be someone totally fucking different. Like you may not have ever expected who you are right now. It might be someone that you don't even have like a cognitive schema for it. Like it might be something that is totally gonna blow you out of the water. So I love that.
Well, and so much of the time we're on automatic pilot too. I think
Yes.
we decide that, oh, I know I don't like that thing. I had that
Yeah.
happen like last month. Somebody offered me pistachio nuts. And I was like, oh, I don't like pistachios. And then I was like, wait a minute. Is that true? I
Yeah.
don't know that I've ever had one. Where did I get that? Maybe when I was like 5, I decided that. I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? I'm going to eat one. I ate one. I was like, this is amazing. I love pistachio nuts. So it's little things like that that I think
Yeah.
sometimes we just don't pause and slow down and say, wait, is that really true about me? Is that
Yeah.
still true? Was
Yes.
it ever true? Who told me that was true? Did I decide that or did someone else hand that off to me? So much of the time we're like, oh, someone else handed that off to me. And that needs to be handed back. That's not
So
relevant to me.
much. Yeah, it's so much of the time. And often, like, we get it from people with, if we were to look at it consciously and logically in the present moment, like, is that the person I would go to like create my self-image? Is that a person I would even take any advice from? Like, why am I letting that dictate who I am now? And it is because, like you're saying, it's very subconscious. I remember my son actually when he graduated. So I have 3 kids, but my eldest is 22. And when he graduated, I had to do this like long drive. And I remember having to do it alone on this like highway here that's like can be kind of stressful. And I was like, I hate driving. I definitely wouldn't want to drive on this highway. And I remember my husband saying to me, he's like, you're probably going to have a great time, a fine time. Don't worry about it. And I started playing with that idea of like, do I really hate driving? Am I scared of that highway? Or have I just heard that that's a thing? And have I just decided that's part of my internal narrative? So I took that trip with this idea of like, I'm gonna do this 5 hour drive and I like, maybe I won't hate it. Can I be like, can I have some psychic openness to not hating it? And I went and I like blasted music that had all the swearing I wanted in it because my other kids weren't in the car. I was alone. I had my thoughts. I was like, and I actually genuinely had a beautiful time. Whereas, like, just a couple days before I left, I was like really in anxious knots about how I was going to do this terrible thing that I was definitely going to hate. And it was all just up here.
Uh-huh. That's how it happens. And we don't
Yeah.
slow down. And we're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, no, I know I hate that. But that's
Yeah.
why I always say, like, let's slow down and say, wait, is that true? And I
Yeah.
got that from Byron Katie. I love her. Her whole
Yeah.
thing is like the work, is it true? And
Yeah.
so much of the time you're like, wow, 90% of the things that I think are true are not actually true, and I have no evidence for them.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So true. And so when you're talking about kind of people who are sensitive or especially like with this label of being an empath, do you find there can be some limiting beliefs there as well? Because I know that I've seen that as well, where it seems like there's almost like this, not always, but sometimes it's like taken as this outsourcing of power, right? Of like, I don't have sovereignty over my emotions, and that isn't what it is actually, right? So in your opinion, like, is that something that you see a lot? And is that something that you address with your work on how to kind of like unfuck that idea?
Oh, yeah, there's a whole package of empath wounding that I see
Mm,
all the time. And honestly, I feel like it's kind of encouraged by a lot of the mainstream empath sources online.
1000%.
A
Yeah.
lot of it is like, oh my gosh, you're so sensitive, you can't do anything.
Yes.
Or you're going to be psychically attacked.
Yeah.
Or wow, you just are wide open, you're so vulnerable. Like, just stay at home,
If you
don't
feel
have
like
a
shit,
life.
it's probably not your fault. It must be someone and then it's like
Yeah.
what does that do to your internal narrative of like I just get dicked around by everyone else's emotions? Like fucking stop that shit.
Yes, and that's the thing is that, I teach like, yes, you do have thin boundaries. I really believe thin or thick boundaries, it's innate. We're
Yeah.
born with it. However, just because you naturally have thin boundaries doesn't mean you don't get to have boundaries.
Yes.
You just need to be a little bit more on top of it and aware of how your thin boundaries operate.
Yeah.
So, going to a really crowded event for 6 to 8 hours straight, it's probably not going to work out well for you. But that doesn't mean you can't live life. That doesn't mean that you can't say no, you can't say enough, you can't say this isn't working for me, you can't end relationships, you can't ask to be treated with respect and expect to be treated with respect. You can
Hmm.
have all of those things. It might be a little bit harder for you because you're not going to be that thick boundary person where you're like, I don't know, stuff just bounces off of me. I don't really care. I don't really feel anything. You're not going to be that, but you can still ask for and honestly demand what you need in life. And that's up to you. That's choice. And I work with a lot of empaths who get real squirrely about choice.
Yeah.
When I start talking about choice and power, even saying the word power, a
Hmm.
lot of highly sensitive empaths are like, oh, I don't like that word because
Hmm.
they're equating it with oppression or
Yeah.
injustice
Yes.
or the abuse of power. And I say, no, I'm using it in the shamanic way of
Yeah.
its life force, its vitality. It is the ability to create. It is the ability to choose. That's power. And that's what we want to connect to. So you
Hmm.
can be the most sensitive person who's ever lived, but if you're connected to your power, you're
Hmm.
going to be okay. And you don't have to let your wounds run the show.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's so important. I know like myself personally, I think I fit all the criteria as an empath. I do not vibe with that as a label just based on what you've mentioned is that so much of like the mainstream narrative when it comes to highly sensitive people, empaths, etc. I just find it to be um one of those things, it's like anything. Once you identify too strongly, I think with anything, it can be an issue. I also had to like get out of all my ADHD groups because it was always about like the ways that you can't do things the regular. And I'm like, okay, no, I'm just like not, I'm not going to opt in consciously to that paradigm. Like I would like to believe there's something on the other side of it. But there is undoubtedly like a specific set of challenges when your life is oriented that way, the way your perception is, and your ability, yes, to feel things so deeply, based on what's going on outside of you or around you.
Oh, I find that in every community. Honestly, in the early days of introvert awareness, it was
Yeah.
like, oh, there's this big relief. But then there was this encouragement of like, well, you're probably going to be really bad at social
Yeah.
interactions and you're going to be bad at small talk and you're not outgoing. And so I would meet people in the introvert space who would say, I can't believe you're an introvert.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I am an introvert, but I took the time to put myself in situations that challenged me.
Yeah.
I took the time to talk to people I don't know and be kind of awkward and just own it. Like, I just am kind of an awkward person. It's okay. People still are okay with me. I can function in life and I'm just going to move forward.
Yeah.
And that did more for me than saying, oh, well, I'm just not going to try anything because I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
So it's too uncomfortable. I find that a lot in a lot of online spaces. There's
Yeah.
this, well, that's really uncomfortable and I don't want to do it. So I'm just going to say I can't do it because I'm this.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because it really shows it kind of gives us like a little trapdoor glimpse into our wounds and our programming that there's this expectation that in order to have a right to be at the table, you have to perform in a specific way, which I think most of us consciously would be like, of course that's not true. Like why would I think that's a requirement for existing or for for putting yourself out there? But yet I think that's programming that so many of us, if not all of us, to some degree do carry in the back of our awareness.
Oh, yeah. When I saw it with creators in the last few years, I couldn't understand why I had all these creators that weren't moving forward with launching their business or doing this. And I had this epiphany one day where I was like, oh, you're waiting to not be scared.
Yeah.
That's what's holding a lot of people back. They're waiting to like not feel scared anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's I just started teaching in my classes like stop waiting.
Yeah.
You know, that package isn't coming. And I tell them I'm scared all the time. I've been doing this for years. I still get uncomfortable. I still get really challenged. I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm not good enough," or like, "I'm an idiot. They're all gonna know." Like that stuff comes up daily.
Yeah.
You just got to keep moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy the power of like relentless forward motion. Like not waiting for shit to be perfect, not waiting to be ready because ready is like literally not a thing that like someone floats down from heaven and like hands you a box and they're like, "Congratulations, you're ready." And you're like, "Yay, I can accomplish all of my dreams now." Like it kind of always feels like well, in my experience, like you're getting dragged by the future, right? And you
Yep.
kind of have to at least sometimes I'll be in a position where it feels really hard. I'm like, go limp, just go limp. Stop
Yeah.
trying to fight it.
Yeah, that is it. You're just being dragged forward. And I always say, well, I'm just going to show up. I'm
Yeah.
going to show up and I'm going to bring myself
Yeah.
and I'm going to see what happens. I
Yeah.
never feel prepared. I never feel competent. I never feel like I'm a grown up. You know, I'm going to be 47 next month. I still don't feel like a grown up. But I say, I'm just going to show up and bring myself and see what happens. And it always works out and it's fine. And afterwards, I'm like, wow, that was so much fun. Or that person was lovely. Or I don't think I sounded like a complete idiot. But even if I did, it was fun. Who cares? It always works out.
Yes, and like look at what it's done for you. So that process of showing up and that process of like putting one foot in front of the other and communicating what's moved through you has made it so that you've written books and you've been able to help so many people. So anybody who's listening to this who is like afraid to do some shit you feel deeply called to do, stop that shit and just put one foot in front of the other.
You're not going to feel ready. You're not going to feel perfect.
Yeah,
And you're also going to put stuff out there that later you're going to be like, I don't know, that wasn't my best work or it was imperfect or
all
that's
the
part of
time.
it. That's part of being creative and being an artist and being a writer, you
Yeah.
know? And I think people are waiting for that too. Like, oh, I'm waiting to do something so great that 10 years later I'll still be proud of it and I'll still feel like it was the ideal vision that came out of my head. It's not like that. You
No.
know, you write stuff, you make stuff, and then 5 years later, you're like, oh, what was I thinking? Okay, that's
Literally.
interesting. And it's not a big deal. And you can still keep moving.
Yeah, that's so true. It's funny because I would never read or watch anything I had ever created because it just like hurt me too much because I was like, oh, I'm so uncomfortable. And eventually I realized, to improve, I had to get over that to some degree, like get your ego out of the way and like try and actually move forward. But it's crazy. I think people don't understand that every single person has that. Like anything
Mhm.
you create is a snapshot in time to some degree of a reflection of your consciousness, what was going on around you, and what your viewpoint and perspective towards that thing at that given time was. And that's, of course, if you are a human who's allowing yourself to grow and shift and evolve and change, which we all should be. It's almost impossible to look back at something you've done before without some inkling of, I would have done this differently. You can still look at
Mhm.
it like, that was my baby and I'm very proud of it. Or maybe even like, this wasn't my best work. But no matter what, your attitude to it is always going to change. Um, and I think that the easier you're willing to embrace that relentless forward motion and that just being part of the game itself, the
Mhm.
easier time you're going to have with your body of work and seeing that it does move and change and you move and change. I also think that people who consume art or consume creative works also need to have that perspective because it's like what you read from someone from their book 20 years ago might not be an accurate reflection of who that person is in the now. And so um, I think we need to always have like a reevaluation of who we are, but also like the projections we're giving on other people.
Oh, yeah. The projections are so hard.
Yeah.
You know, I think we also have to keep in mind every human being has a mental distortion in place
Yeah.
about themselves.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it's like that, but it is. You know,
Yeah.
I do YouTube, and before I post videos, I have to watch the video to make
Yeah.
sure like nothing's awry. And it's torture. I
Yeah.
sit there and I'm like, oh, I look horrible.
Yeah.
I hate my hair. Everyone probably thinks like my nose looks stupid. I don't think those things about anybody else. I
Yeah.
watch videos of other people and I'm like, I don't know, she looks like a perfectly nice woman. She's got like nice hair and some sparkly eyeshadow. And I don't think anything more about it, but with myself,
Yeah.
I'm like just picking myself apart. We all do that. And so you have to know if you are reading something you've written or looking at a piece of art or watching a video you filmed, you're going to have that tape start up. It's just going to go automatically. You just got to ignore it.
Yeah.
And people say, but how do I stop hearing it? You're not going to stop hearing it. Just
No.
turn away from it. It's there, whatever. Just get out, just like ignore it.
Yeah. It's like having it's so funny what you're saying I'm agreeing with because it's so painfully deeply relatable. I always find other people always look the same to me. I'm like that guy looks like that guy no matter what movie I see him in, no matter
Yeah.
what thing but when
I
it's
think
me,
nothing of it.
right? And when it's me, I'm like, God, you look like a bitch bag today. What the hell is wrong? Like, what happened to you? You look like you got hit by a bus. It's so funny because it's definitely like that's how I check myself too, is go, like, how different does my husband look from day to day? I'm like, he looks the same. Like, it's like we see this gap of like, this very self-referential thing. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's it's something that is very hard to deal with. But like you're saying, we don't ever get rid of it. It's like your shadows, right? It's something you have to learn to work with, navigate, communicate with, figure out what it's trying to tell you, where you might not be energetically squeaky clean in certain areas, right? And so I think that it's all just knowledge. It's kind of like having a toddler or, if you have an 18-month-old that's literally sitting on your kitchen floor screaming at you while you're trying to do stuff.
Mhm.
I know for myself, having three kids, I've gotten pretty good at like tuning that out to the point my husband would be
Yes.
like, what it like we have to make we have to make her stop. Like, what do we do to fix it? I'm like, you can't I can filter it. I can filter
Yeah,
it.
just talk over her.
Yeah,
That's what I say. Like
that's
when
not
the voice in my
stopping.
head starts up, I'm like, I don't know, just talk over it. It's like
Yeah.
construction started up outside the window. Just talk louder.
Yeah.
Just don't focus on it. It'll
Yeah.
stop eventually.
Yeah. And if there's a rebellious bone in your body, become even louder, become even bolder, become even more freely self-expressed because that guy does not get to run the show.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love that so much. So, with the type of work that you're doing like right now, what do you have some things coming up? Do you have
Oh my
some
gosh.
stuff I know you've got your once a month silent writing, um, things that you do. Is there anything else coming up on the horizon that we can tell people about?
Well, so Mandy, there's so much. And I have this look on my face because I've been teaching a new 3-week class every 3 weeks for the past 2 years
Wow.
with no breaks.
Yeah.
And they're all different. I've done
Yeah.
a different one every 3 weeks. So this year alone, I've done INF trauma and healing, mental health for INFJs and INFPs, creativity and self-healing. I'm starting an energy management class tomorrow. The
Amazing.
way to get all the notifications is to get on my newsletter list.
Okay.
I don't even bother updating my website because I just am always teaching a new class. And long ago, my husband was like, "This is a complete pain. Like, you
Yeah.
have to stop making me update the website."
Yeah.
So I do everything through my newsletter. So sign up for my newsletter. And I mean, I will warn you, you'll get a newsletter from me just about every day. And I write
Amazing.
long ones. I write a lot, but I always have something that people can join or get involved in. So sign up for my newsletter, and that's where you'll get everything.
Okay, amazing. I actually love that. I feel like I don't know if it's my age or what, but I prefer long form content. Like I actually prefer when there can be context, when there can be an actual like in-depth discussion, and I feel like the world's kind of gradual shift into like if you can't say it in 15 seconds or less, like nobody's gonna listen. I fucking cannot with that. It drives me nuts. To anyone listening to this that's on my email list, just so you know, that's where I'm coming from. Brevity is not my bag, but I love that. So I will link your newsletter list and your website and everything below. So if you are listening to this and you want to connect with Lauren, I'm going to have all her information below in the description so that you can.
Well, and I always say with my newsletter too, my goal is that you get value no matter what. Everybody gets a payoff. So if you never join a class of mine, if you never spend one dime with me, that's fine. You'll still get a ton of stuff, a ton of teaching just through
Mhm.
the newsletter. And
That's
there's all those sorts of different topics. So if you're like, well, my thing is trauma, or my thing is relationships, or my thing is energy work, you'll get something.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I do have another question for you in terms of your own kind of spiritual or intuitive practice when it comes to your creativity, and being able to actually like write daily and produce daily. Is that something that you can give a little insight to how you do that, or some advice for people who are looking to maybe become more consistent? Because I know a lot of times there's a specific creative block of like um, feeling like you lack ideas, or feeling like you don't have time to like communicate the way you want to communicate. So, what are your thoughts?
So I have a couple different approaches. If I'm writing fiction, I let the characters lead me.
Hmm.
Fiction is something I can't just sit down and make myself write every day. I can't be like, well, I have to hit a word count, or I just have to force myself to do it. If they're not talking, they're not talking. And I need to do some right brain activities to talk to them. Listen to some music, go for some walks in nature, immerse myself in the research, whatever it is. So if I'm working on a fiction project, the most I can do is probably 3 times a week, 40 minutes a time, little fragments come out. Everything else, it really is just a muscle. So, writing newsletters, writing articles, writing nonfiction chapters, I just sit down and I just push myself to do it. It's like getting on the treadmill. I never want to. I never am like, oh, that sounds great. Let me get on the treadmill. It's the same as having a donut. It's not. It
Yeah.
sucks. I don't
Yeah.
want to do it. The first 5 minutes, the whole time, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And
Yeah.
then suddenly it gets better somewhere in there. And 10 minutes in, I'm like, oh, it's fine. I could keep doing this. And 20 minutes later, I'm like, oh, I wrote something. Cool.
Mhm.
And it gets easier. The more you push yourself to get on the treadmill, your
Mhm.
brain adapts and it stops fighting back so hard. With any habit, it stops fighting back so hard. At some point, your brain's like, I don't know, we do this thing. We just do this. And this is what it's like. And so that hump becomes smaller and smaller. I do think the silent writing sessions can really help,
Yeah.
especially if you turn your camera on, because I tend to, for me, if I feel like people are watching me, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh no. Even though no one is watching me, but I'm like, everyone's going to notice if I stop writing. So
Yeah.
I really work that peer pressure. That's what works for me.
Yeah, and I think that really does speak to a lot of people, and that accountability as well. Um, I know it's funny you're saying the camera can be off or on, and I know for me personally, as somebody who facilitates over Zooms and things like that, I love when people have their camera on. I love when people, because then it's like you actually feel connected, tapped in, that sort of thing. And so I can see how that would be like a pretty good motivator for actually being able to, I'm here for this, and so I'm going to stay in this zone. Because I think it can feel like you're saying with the Stairmaster idea, right? It can feel more overwhelming before you're in it. And then once you're in it, the time it will pass. You'll feel really usually amazed and inspired by what you can come away with. I'm guessing.
I think same thing with like a fitness trainer.
Yeah.
Every time I've ever like worked with a trainer, I'm like, oh, they're watching me. They're telling me to do things. I want to
Yeah.
please them. And so I use that people pleasing part of myself. Well, I don't want to disappoint anyone. I better give it my all. Whereas if I'm on my own at the gym, I'm like, I don't know. I don't really care. I
Yeah.
could just go home now.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, so one last question. So I always ask like a little fun high strangeness question at the end of these, because I just like hearing people's perspective on weird shit, because I am such a big fan of weird shit. So when it comes to channeling creativity, allowing it to move through you, this is a loaded question and as brief as you would like it to get. But like, where do you think that comes from? Like, do you think it's an actual spirit of a muse we're tapping into? Is it something deeper? Like, it feels like a spiritual thing when you are in it and when you do it. And so my question would be to you, do you have any idea of what that thing would be, or how does that feel for you?
I really don't know because I've had some strange experiences. I wrote a fictional novel 7 years ago, and I was so close with the main character. I tell people this, and some people think I'm just totally crazy, but I was like, I could feel him in my body.
Yeah.
I could feel him in my body. And it, the weird things would happen. Like he got really sick in the story, and 2 days later, I got really sick, and I would tell people that, and they're like, well, maybe you felt something coming on. So
Hmm.
you unconsciously wrote about it. And I was like, no, it wasn't like that at all, though.
Hmm.
He had a very weird 24-hour thing, and then I got a very weird 24-hour thing.
Yeah.
I just finished writing a novel on the Manson family, and I used some of the real people as characters. My husband was so tired of the Manson family
Yeah.
after like 2 years of this. But I was like, I swear I can feel them. Like, it's not just me, like, well, if this person was a character, what would they? I was like, I can feel their energy and I'm connecting with something.
Yeah.
And I can feel when some characters want to connect and others don't. So, where does it come from? I don't know. I think sometimes it comes from our universe.
Yeah.
I do also believe in the alternate universe model. So I think sometimes things are coming through from an alternate universe.
Yeah.
But honestly, I just don't know. I don't think that it's just coming from our brain.
Yeah.
I will say that. I do not think it's just coming from our brain. I think we're connecting with something outside of ourselves, or maybe within ourselves, but in another dimension or plane or something.
Yeah.
And it's coming through there. I've had too many weird experiences.
Yeah, and I feel like creative people have so many experiences like that. I mean, there's the other night I was just watching again for like the millionth time Philip K. Dick's talk on the multiple parallel realities and how that influenced the books that he wrote. I mean, there's obviously like Grant Morrison's sort of hyper sigil things where you're writing about something. People musicians will often talk about writing a song and kind of manifesting reality through their music and things like that. So I think it's something that is just too widespread of an experience to brush off or to put in the like mundane box.
Mhm.
So thank you so much for that answer because it really is fascinating. Hey?
Oh, I could talk about that for another 2 hours. I
Yeah.
love, like, if you want to talk about different universes or, time expansion or anything, I'm into it.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, maybe you should come back on so we can talk about parallel universes because I'm like, oh God, don't get me going on that too.
Well, yeah, when you said, "Oh, I have to ask you this," I was like, "Oh, is it about aliens?" Because I really am into aliens too.
Oh, are you into alien? Oh my God, I'm so into aliens.
Yeah. So I was like, "Oh, anywhere you go with this is going to be fun."
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's so funny because I feel like every so often I'll like smoke some hash or something and I'll just be like sitting in the bathtub going, does anyone else find it fucking weird that we live in this like reality where we're like, oh yeah, everything came from nothing and like our entire like existence and everything is all just like answer like questions with no answers, no possible answers. And I'm like, how are we just functioning and grocery shopping and like dealing day to day when this is the case? And I have to not think of it too much because it starts to hurt my brain. But I'm like, we actually are a living paradox. Like there's no satisfactory answer, and there won't be. And if there is, I don't think our like human brains could ever comprehend it. And so, yeah, the more I think about it, the more fucked up I get, and it makes it hard to just go get paper towels, and it makes it hard to drop your
Yes.
kids off at school because you're like, what is this?
That's an INFJ, INFP thing. From the time we're like 5 years old, the other kids are like, I want the best crayons. And we're like, are we really alone here?
Right.
We're like in kindergarten. I've talked to so many INF people who are like, from a young age, I was laying awake at night thinking about these deep questions. I was like 5.
Yeah. I remember
Normal for
hearing
us.
that like because like my grandpa was Roman Catholic, so I'd go to like midnight mass with him and it would be like, you better behave or you're going to hell, like, more than that, but like that was really a big takeaway when I was like 5. And then I also had a parent who was a um atheist, agnostic, and I knew that the scientific idea that was that you die and your brain and heart activity stops and that's it. That's all she wrote. And I remember so distinctly being like 8 years old in my bed terrified of death because I was like, but I can't wrap my head around the that could be a thing and that
Yeah.
would be the satisfactory answer to any of this. And I remember hearing about the Big Bang when I was a kid and going to the grown-ups around like, y'all fucking believe this? Like I just can't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh
Oh
man.
yeah. Yeah. We might, you know what? We have to have a conversation some other time. I don't know, recorded somewhere because there's just too much to talk about.
There absolutely is. So yes, you should come back on and we will talk all about aliens and parallel realities because yeah, it really is something that is just it's so compelling and I feel like it also kind of scratches that like dopamine itch to think about. Like
Mhm.
one of the best you're talking about how INFJs and like neurodivergence has such an overlap. One of the best examples that I've ever heard, and I can't remember where I heard it, was like somebody with ADHD, they'll see the dresser with like they'll see the drawers open, like everything that's in the dresser. And I think there's this idea that ADHD is somehow a deficit of seeing what's there, when really it's almost like too much, like seeing too much of what's there. And so it does become really hard to pick out the linear through lines because it's like, but that through line has this context that has this context
Yeah.
that has been fed into by this web. And then it just becomes its like own thing.
Yeah. And that's how INFPs think. Because then there's such
Yeah.
a huge overlap with ADHD and INFPs.
Yeah.
Because that's how they naturally think. They see all the possibilities.
All of the possibilities. And
Hmm.
like, just in your work, you must see it. It becomes very creatively frustrating as well sometimes to
Yes.
see to be able to have such a conceptualization, such a big picture frame to pull things out of that in a way that feels tidy enough for us is like
Because
next to
choosing
impossible.
is challenging.
Yeah.
Choosing is really hard.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Thank God for book editors, I will say. I think my editors of my books definitely they worked hard, I will say. Yeah, because staying brief and on point and all of that is always a challenge.
Well, thank you so much for this, Mandy. This was amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And yeah, I would love to get you on another time. So anyone who is listening to this, please feel free to check the description below and get some information on how to get on Lauren's newsletter, where to find her online so that you connect with her and her work, where to find her books, all of that fun stuff. And thank you again so much for being here, Lauren.
Cool. Thank you, Mandy.